guys. Hey, welcome to City Church. So glad that you are here. Welcome to our first week back in the auditorium, which is awesome, and to the kickoff of our new series, Zero Emission Soul. You're like, what in the world does that mean? I'm so glad you asked. I will tell you. I was thinking about all of these zero emission cars that we have and how we're constantly trying to pay attention to our footprint on the environment and how we are affecting the world around us by the way that we live and the byproduct out of our living. And while that is important, that has nothing to do with a series that we are in. As we have our conversation today, I was thinking, in the same way that we are trying to pay attention to the lives that we're living on the world around us, I want to get to a place where I can pay attention to what's going on internally, because if you're like me, what's going on internally tends to start to spill over into the other relationships and friends and people that I know. And a lot of times, if you're like me, what starts to spill over is things that you wish weren't spilling over, things you wish you could take back, things that are less than exciting, less than admirable, less than pleasing to those around you. And so, I don't know if you find yourself there, but for me, I was like, man, what would it take to change what's on the inside and see if it can make a difference on the outside? And so a couple of months ago, I started working out consistently and routinely and somewhat aggressively, which you can obviously tell, right, that I have been doing that. Okay, that's really rude, and that's fine that you can't tell, but you know what? It's not for you anyway, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, anyway, all right, going on. One day I came home from working out and Danielle was like, babe, I'm really proud of you for working out consistently over the last couple of months. I'm like, whoa, thanks, babe, that means so much to me. And then she was like, now if you could start working out your attitude, that would be awesome. And I was like, dang, and I wasn't even mad. I was like, mic drop. I think I said it out loud, dang, that was good, and you have a point. I think because I came home with an attitude that day after working out. And so what we're doing over the next 4 weeks is looking at how we can make change in and around us that makes change in and around us. That makes sense to you? So we can't cover everything in 4 weeks, right? We're not going to be able to take the next 4 weeks and completely revolutionize every aspect of our lives, but what we are going to do is focus on becoming better managers, or the Bible would use the word stewards of the lives that we have, so we can get to a place to where what God is doing internally in our lives is affecting everything around us. And so to give you kind of a core idea of where we're going, Jesus said that where our treasure is in Matthew 6, that's where our heart is also. And so he gives us some perspective, and I want you to understand that this is way bigger than money. We're talking about your time, your talent, your energy, your resources, all of it. And Jesus, I want you to think, when he says treasure, he's talking about investment. What you invest in, your heart follows that. And so the question for you and I is, are we investing in the things that matter most and make the biggest impact with the things that we have? Are we being good managers of the life that we are living? So I realize some of you, we have all kinds of different spiritual journeys in the room, and so some of you are followers of Jesus, and some of you are kind of on the line, and you're trying to figure out what you believe and why you believe. Some of you don't believe in God at all, and I realize as we come in with different spiritual journeys, what I want you to know is this is a safe place for you to explore, to grow, to kind of dig in and test the waters, if you will. And what I love about what we're about to do the next 4 weeks is that it's all going to be super helpful, super practical, and even if you're not a follower of Jesus, it's going to be helpful to you. And I hope that in addition to that, it's going to pull out some really, really big ideas about the love of God for us and his plan for our lives. And if you're from the outside looking in, that you would be able to catch a glimpse of who God is and what he has for you and what that means. And so as I prepared for this, guys, man, I am so super pumped and challenged and encouraged all at the same time. And I believe with all my heart over the next 4 weeks that the conversations we're going to be having carry incredible potential for life change, both when it comes to our relationships, when it comes to our singleness, when it comes to our marriages, when it comes to our parenting, when it comes to the influence that we have in our city, the influence that we have in the world around us, when it comes to our future. The next 4 weeks are incredibly pivotal to where we're going and carry intense opportunity for life changes. So I'm begging you, don't check out, stick it out. Try to make it all 4. If you can't, man, make it 3 of the 4 and then catch the last one online, and then technically you got perfect attendance, okay? It's going to be super, super helpful. And hear me on this. Listen, this is one of those conversations that if you let it, you can kind of get stuck in the back of your mind where you want to check out early because you're like, man, I don't need that. Or there it is again, there's another church talking about money, and I want you to know, listen, Jesus does not want your money. City Church does not want your money. The series is not just about your money. Hear me on this. Jesus doesn't want your money. He wants all of you. This conversation is way bigger than money. And so don't get stuck on that, okay? So the next 4 weeks, it's going to be on the screen for you. Here's what we're looking at. 4 simple ideas that I hope you can memorize. The first one is this: less is more. Less is more. That's what we're going to be dealing with today. Next week, we're going to look at stress is bad, right? Everybody agree? Stress is bad. Giving is good is the third week. Giving is good. And then lastly, tomorrow matters. Tomorrow matters. So I'm going to give you the 4 again. First of all, less is more, and then stress is bad, giving is good, and tomorrow matters. One more time so you don't forget it. Less is more, stress is bad, giving is good, and tomorrow matters. That's what we're looking at over the next 4 weeks, and today we're looking at the conversation of less is more. And if you're like me, you have been programmed to believe that more is always more, right? In this conversation, if 1 is good, then 2 is better. If 1 is good, then more is better. And so if $1 is good, $2 is better. If 1 car is good, 2 cars is better. If 1 kid is good, 2 kids. Actually, that's debatable. I don't know if that one's better or not. That you can decide. If 1 Oreo is good, 2 Oreos is better. If 1 double stuffed Oreo that you take the back off of, and then another double stuffed Oreo that you take the back off of, and you put those 2 together, and then you do it again for another one, if one of those is good, then 2 double stuffed, triple stacked Oreos is better. If 1 is good, more is better. That's how we're programmed, especially in the West. If 1 is good, more is better. A couple of years ago, some of my buddies were having a bachelor party for one of our friends, and we decided to, in this party, throw a beer pong competition in the form of Red Bull. And so we had Red Bull Pong, which sounded awesome until we experienced it. And I'm grateful it wasn't alcohol because it would have been a bad night, but Red Bull Pong, we had all these different flavors, and we're like, oh yeah, and I love Red Bull, especially, on the little ones, because technically you can have a couple of these and not die, and so I love all the flavors, and they're fruity, and they're awesome, and so I'm like, man, if 1 Red Bull is good, then 2 Red Bulls is definitely better, and so we cracked them open. I think we did 1 or 2 cans per set in a game, and what's unfortunate is I'm really, really bad at the game of Pong, and so kind of cut it close to the end, ended up having to drink most of the Red Bull on the first round. I ended up winning, which turns out is actually a really bad thing when you are done. And so I was already kind of feeling a little bit, over-amped from the Red Bull I've had, but then I had to play round 2, and I was equally as bad that time, and I had to drink even more. And by the end of it, I started to really feel kind of weird and too much on my stomach and all these different flavors. And so then went to my buddy's bathroom, and I began to just puke all of the Red Bull that I had just consumed, and it was the most fruity, flavorful vomit that I've ever had, almost good enough to try again, but not really. It was that kind of a vomit. And that evening I learned, 1 is sometimes good and 2 might be better, but in that case it was not. Sometimes less is more. Are you with me? Sometimes less is more. The core verse that we're dealing with in this topic today of less is more is from Ecclesiastes 4:6. Now, really unique perspective. This is from Solomon. He is one of the richest people to ever have walked the face of the earth. He's got access to everything, all the stuff you could imagine, all the relationships, all the VIP access. He's got it all. And as he reflects on his life, he writes the book of Ecclesiastes. And here's some advice that he points us toward in Ecclesiastes 4:6. And he says, "Better is one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind." So let me illustrate it for you. Better is one handful with tranquility, with peace, than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. And he talks about the difference of one handful versus two. So when is less more? When is less more? He's saying that one handful is better than two because in two, how many of you guys have ever experienced it this way? This is two handfuls. And he's saying better is one handful in the ability to engage with those around you than two handfuls with stress and toil and frustration and angry Instagram posts and ridiculous Facebook updates and crazy news feeds. And better is one handful with peace and tranquility than two handfuls with toil. What can I do? If I have one handful instead of two, what can I do? I can give a hand to someone in need. If they need a help up, I can extend a hand and help them. If I have two handfuls, I'm unable to do that. I'm too consumed with myself. If I have one handful, what can I do? I can offer something that I have to someone else in need. Like, hey, here you go. Here's an extra Red Bull because I don't need it because it's bad for me. Join the club. If I have one handful instead of two, what can I do? I can offer comfort for someone and put my arm around them and encourage them and give them a little bit of a buddy hug. And if I have one handful, what can I do? I can take a nap if I want because I have an extra hand. Or if I have one handful, I can give someone encouragement. I'm giving them a high five because they're awesome. If I have one handful with tranquility, I have the capacity to engage with things that really matter around me. Whereas when I have two handfuls with toil and strife and chasing after the wind, which by the way, I don't know if you ever tried to catch the wind, but it's hard to do. Better is one handful than two. Why? Why is this important? Because what we're focusing on today is less of what doesn't matter so that I can focus on what does matter. What we're talking about is less of what doesn't matter so that I can focus on what does matter. And so ask yourself the question, think about it for a moment. What really matters to you? What really is important at the end of your life? We do this often, right? We think about it. We see people at the end of their lives and they begin to reflect on what was really important. And it's never the things that we chase after in the moment, is it? Right? No one's ever on their deathbed saying, "Oh man, can you just bring me my bank account statement one more time? I just want to see the ending balance one more time." Or no one ever says, can you just slip my new pair of J's on one more time? I want to wear those new J's one last time. No one says, you know what, I just want one more ride on my fancy new one wheel. One more ride, which you probably aren't going to get if you're already at that point. You know what, bring me my phone one more time. I want to open up my Instagram account. I just want to see how many followers I have one last time. No one ever says, I just want to sit in my car one more time before I go. I just want to look over my resume one more time before I go. I just, you know what, can you bring me my diplomas one more time so I can just enjoy all that I accomplished? No one is valuing those things at the end of their lives. And we know that, but here's what's ironic. When you and I define what matters, we realize that we spend a lot of life chasing the things that don't matter, right? Isn't that ironic that when we define what does matter, we end up spending a bunch of our life chasing the things that don't matter? And part of that is because we think we are taught that whatever I don't have is what I need. Whatever I don't have is what I need. Whatever I don't have is what I need. More is better. More is better. More is better. And so what I want to invite you into is this concept of less is more living, based on Ecclesiastes 4:6. That better is one handful and the opportunity to experience and enjoy the things that really matter than two handfuls and missing out on all that is really important in this life. And so less is more living. Number one, here's what we're going to do. We're going to learn to cut back. Learn to cut back. Point number one, it's cut back. We're going to learn to cut back. Danielle and I, we were married 2010. Our first home was built in the 1960s. And what was really cool about this house, it was an awesome house, really grateful to even be at a place like that. But all the closets were really tiny and they were separated. And so like in our room, we both had these tiny little closets and it barely held all of my stuff, but like just enough. Like both of us had just enough room in our closets for our stuff. And I was thinking about it, like, man, like why are their closets so tiny? And part of it is I think because in the 60s, you just didn't have that much stuff to put in a closet, right? You had a few things available to you, and there wasn't necessarily a surplus. Now, fast forward to the life that we are living right now, and in our culture in the West, what's happened? As developments happen and new houses are built, now we have walk-in closets, right? Like, oh, look at me. I'm like in my closet. I can do a 360, right? Some people, they have walk-around closets. You know what I'm talking about? Like some people, their closets are so big that you could do 4 laps in their closet and you've run a quarter of a mile, right? Like walk around closets. And we have this unique transition of these huge closets to hold more and more of our stuff because more is better, more is better, more is better. And here's what's ironic. Probably more on the ladies' end than the guys, but how many of you ever walked into your closet and said, I just don't have anything to wear, right? I just don't have anything to wear out of all of this stuff in my ginormous closet, in my 2-tiered closet, in my super duper closet. I don't have anything to wear. And you take a step back and think, you're like, what in the world do we mean by that? Like we know that that's not true, but we get stuck in this more is better idea and concept. And so we're going to learn to cut back. Our church planting resident, Seth, he moved here about a month and a half ago and moved in the dinkiest little moving truck I've ever seen, which is actually kind of a compliment to him. Like he didn't have a lot of stuff that he had to move here, which was awesome. And so because he's bumming a room and renting it from some friends, he really doesn't have a place to put his stuff. And so he does what other people do because they have so much junk. But Seth is having to do just out of necessity, and that is to rent a storage locker, right? And so some of us, we have so much stuff in our possession that it won't fit in our closets and it won't fit in our garage and it won't fit in our attics. And so we actually pay someone else to hold all of our junk that we never see and that we never use, but it's important and we got to hold on to it even though we don't know what's in there. And so Seth is moving out and we're moving all of his stuff into the storage locker and there's all these boxes and it's not a ton of stuff, but I asked him like, hey man, what's in this box? What's in this box? What's in this box? And he's like, you know what? I don't know. And I'm like, wow, well, it's clearly really important to you if you don't know what's in these boxes. I'm like, dude, you can just set it all on fire right now and you'd never even know it was gone. And so we were laughing with him, but the reality is, man, we are trained to accumulate more and more and more and more stuff. And the writer of Ecclesiastes is telling us, hey, listen, less is more. Better is one handful than 2 handfuls of toil and strife. Jesus said it this way. He says, beware of greed. Pay attention to it because your life doesn't consist in the abundance of your possessions. Your life is not about the abundance of your stuff. And he gives us a warning. Your life is way more than the stuff that you have around you. And we know that, right? You and I, we know that, but we have a hard time living it because we get stuck in this routine. And so what I want to encourage us to do, listen, I'm not telling you can't have anything. I'm saying let's cut back on our consumption. Let's cut back on more and more and more and more, and let's evaluate. Because if we're being honest, if you're like me, as I get my head out of the dirt and I start to look around and I evaluate all of the stuff that's in my life and all the junk that crowds my life, I realize, you know what? To be honest, I want less stuff filling all of my hands and more time with real friends. I want one handful with peace and tranquility and some real friends that I can enjoy and invest in and live life with. I want less stuff and more time with my family. I want less stuff and more experiences that I get to build and memories that I get to build. And I was thinking about it, right? Your Amazon wish list. Oh man, so my birthday was about 2 weeks ago, and really grateful. Friends and family sent me some Amazon gift cards, and I was like pumped. I'm like, woohoo, Amazon, because I got a wish list on Amazon. How many of you guys got an Amazon wish list? I got one of those because I put all the stuff in there that I want that I can't afford right now. And so when someone sends me some gift cards, I'm like, oh yeah, it's time to start hitting that wish list. And so ironically, at the same time, I'm like getting ready for this talk that we're having right now, and I'm like feeling kind of convicted about it. I'm like, oh man. And so I got these gift cards, and I dive into my wish list, and I'm like, oh man, like I don't really need that or that or that. And listen, I got a big wish list, okay? So I'm like, I don't need that or that or that or that or that. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, like all this stuff on my wish list, when I really evaluate it, I don't need any of it. Just stuff that I want. And so we're gonna learn to cut back so we can position ourselves to invest in the things that really matter. And listen, if you got Alexa in your home, this is even harder because she's listening. And then on your Instagram and on your Facebook, she's popping up ads on the stuff that you talked about that you wanted. So you got to watch out because it's constantly there in your face. We got to learn to cut back. The second thing we're going to cut back, and then we're going to clear out. We're going to learn to clear out. Now listen, this one's unique because of what it does for us. When we not only start to cut back on our consumption, but when we start to clear out, what it does is it declutters our hearts and our minds. The less stuff that we have, when we start to go through our things and we start to get rid of them, we start to make room in our lives. It doesn't just make room physically, it makes room in our heart, in our mind, and our soul, and it begins to set us free to pay attention to the things that really matter. So I've been reading some books on minimalism. I watched a few shows by Marie Kondo. I don't know if you guys have watched that crazy stuff, but it's pretty cool and crazy at the same time. And so here's what I'm watching happen in my own life. As I cut back, as I clear out, there is more room in my soul that wasn't there before. I'm a book hoarder. I love books, get books, collect books. People give me books, and I want to hold on to them because you never know. Like that book that I read 7 years ago, I might pick back up again and use it, even though I probably won't, but I might. And so I'm going to hold on to it, and books weigh a bajillion pounds, and they take up tons of space, and I was holding on to them. And so in light of this conversation, I started to go through all of our boxes. We have this little Harry Potter closet underneath our stairwell in our garage, and so I start to pull stuff out, and I've got right around like 8 to 10 boxes of books in that closet, big boxes of books. And I have no idea what's in them. And so I start cracking them open. I'm like, I don't need those or those or those or those or those or those. I gave away 8 boxes of books because I was like, man, I got to live this if I'm going to teach it. But as I start to get rid of stuff, you know what I'm noticing? The less stuff in my life, the more organized it is. There's less of a drag on my heart, less of a drag on my mind when I get home. I can focus on what matters in front of me instead of being frustrated by the clutter or distracted by all the stuff in the way. And the more stuff that we have that doesn't have a home, it's constantly in our way, or the laundry that never ends. Just imagine as you start to clear out, the less clothes that you have, the less laundry that can accumulate in one time before it gets put up. There's all kinds of opportunities here. So why is this hard? Why is this hard? Because we're taught more is more, is more, is more, is better, is better, is better. And Solomon's teaching us, and God's trying to teach us, one hand is better with peace and tranquility than two, with stress and frustration and toil. And so some of you, and some of us, we didn't grow up with a lot, and so what happens is in our minds, we don't want to waste things, and so we hold on to things, we begin to hoard things because we might need it. And I'm sensitive to that, right? You hold on to it, you're like, man, you never know, I might need that extra set of AV cables that I keep in that drawer. I might need, those extra batteries that actually went dead, but you never know, one of them might be good out of the 4, so they stay in that because I got to test them later. I might need those, and we hold on to things because we might need them. Others of us, we're sentimental. Someone gives us something and we hold on to it because it's sentimental, and we say, oh man, that's from my great aunt's second cousin's next door neighbor. They gave me that for my birthday. It's really valuable, really important, even though I have no idea why I still have it or what it means. And so I'm sympathetic towards those motives, but I want to give you some tools to help you in this conversation to make some room in your heart, your mind, and your soul for what really matters. I think one of the reasons that we get stuck in this conversation of, I have nothing to wear is because of the Netflix effect that we have on our lives, and it's because we're overwhelmed with options, right? You ever sat in front of Netflix and say there's just nothing to watch? Right? You scroll forever. You spend all your time looking for movies instead of actually watching one. Too many options. If you get on an airplane from here to Hawaii and they offer 4 movies, guess what you're doing? Picking one of the 4. You don't have the option. And so one of the reasons is when we decrease our options, we have more clarity about what's most important. As I clear out, I'm free to focus on what really matters. And so if you have a hard time getting rid of stuff, I'm going to give you some really simple tools. One of the things that Marie Kondo talks about is that as you get rid of stuff, first of all, if you haven't worn it in the last year, she'll have you take all your closets out of all your clothes out of your closet, put it on your bed in a pile, go through it. If you haven't worn it in a year, then get rid of it. And if it's sentimental, what she'll say is thank it for its purpose and then send it on its way so that it could help somebody else. And so, for example, I take my books and I say, hey, thank you, book, so much for, 10 years ago making a big difference in my heart and mind about the way that I think. Now I'm going to send you off to go be a help to somebody else. Thank you so much, book, for what you did. Thank you so much, dress, for making me look sexy 7 years ago at that prom dance that I went to. This is not for me, by the way, right? I'm speaking in the tense of a female in the room. Thank you so much, dress, for making me look smoking fine, but I'm going to send you on your way to let someone else look really, really super good, right? We thank it for its purpose, send it out the door. And so one of the things that Danielle and I have adopted, we've been trying to, not perfectly, but we're trying to get to this, is the idea of get one, give one. Get one, give one. Get one, give one. And what this looks like is, if we get something, we can give it away. If the kids get a toy, they give a toy. If I get a pair of pants, I give some pants. If I get a shirt, I give a shirt. If I give some shoes, if I get some shoes, I should say, I give some shoes. If I get some underwear, I don't give underwear because that's weird. You don't want to recycle those. But some of you, you could be in the 100 giveaway club over this next week. I want to just challenge you. What if you went home this week, found 100 things to give away? You're like, I don't know, man, 100, that's a lot of things. I bet you got 100 things in your junk drawer you could give away today. 100 things sitting in there, you have no idea it's there because it's buried under all that other junk. 100 things to give away this week. Just see what happens inside. What happens? Because better is one handful with peace and tranquility than 2 handfuls and a bunch of stuff and stress in the way of what really matters. The first thing we're going to do, cut back. The second thing we're going to do, we're going to clear out. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to learn to pay off. Next week, we're going to talk about it. Stress is bad, right? Stress is bad. There's never been anyone on the history of the planet that says, man, debt helps me feel so at peace. I love my high interest rate credit card loans. Man, it makes my marriage so much more intimate. My relationship with my kids is so much better. I sleep so good at night because I have $16,000 in credit card debt. No one has ever said, I am so close to God because of my huge car payments every month. No one says that. What do they say? I'm stressed. I'm worried. I'd give anything to go back. I'd give anything to get out from underneath the burden of these payments and this debt. And so next week, we're going to look at the heart behind this conversation. But all I want to do is put the bug in your ear, if you will, that being debt-free is fun. Being debt-free gives us the ability to have one handful and then an open hand to be able to help others, and 2 handfuls in stress and chasing after the wind. I want you to imagine a life with no student loans. Imagine a life with no car payments. Imagine a life with no house payment. And what you could do, and what kind of difference you could make. And you're like, man, that sounds impossible. It's not impossible. We're going to talk about it next week. But I want you to think of it this way. Better is a car paid off with peace and tranquility than a car with big interest payments every month. Better it is to have financial margin and to live in a certain way where we're cutting back than to live paycheck to paycheck and not ever have the ability to help someone else and not know if we can make it this next month if that check doesn't come in. Now hear me on this. This is not saying that you can't have anything. And I'm not telling you, get rid of everything, don't have anything, you can't have nice stuff. Here's what I am saying. It's better to have a few nice things that you own than a bunch of junk that owns you. I'll say it again. It's better to have some nice stuff that you own than a bunch of junk that owns you. Craig Rochelle says it this way. He said, the richest people in the world are not those who have the most, but those who need the least. The richest people in the world are not those who have the most, but those who need the least. I had the privilege of taking a mission trip to Guatemala a couple years ago, and once we got out of Guatemala City, we started getting into some of the villages, and no water, no electricity, kids without shoes. I remember some ladies cooking tortillas on a hot rock, metal tin roof walls on the sides and on the top. I mean, it was everything that you would imagine it to be, but even more real when you get there. And I remember there was a bunch of kids playing soccer, and you know those like Walmart balls, the colorful, cheap, bouncy, useless Walmart balls that you can find in the giant thing at Walmart that you want to crawl in and play in, when no one's looking. So these kids had one of those. It was slightly deflated Walmart balls, and they were playing soccer on just a little dirt patch, no shoes, which, by the way, they were really good at soccer. And so I tried to play with them, and I was not very good, and I was embarrassed by my lack of skill. But I noticed, man, they were incredibly content. Had tons of joy as they played soccer with this junky ball, no shoes on, outside. And I thought about, you come back to the States and we watch kids who are always bored and don't have anything to do, and they're stuck inside, and they want another game on their phone, or they want a new game for their Xbox, and we're never content, we're never happy. And I watched some kids who had nothing live in such a way that they had access to way more than I did, and they were content. I remember going to a church and watching some Jesus followers as they were gathering together, some Jesus followers who had nothing, worshiped like they had everything. And I was like, man, what is it that they have that I don't have? They had this contentment that I didn't have. Again, because the richest people in the world are not those who have the most, but those who need the least. And I can remember thinking to myself, man, I wish I had contentment like that. I wish I had passion like that. I wish I could engage with my family and friends around me and just be present and available like they are. And then I get back to the States and I say things are going to be different, and then it's so easy to get back into the mindset. What I don't have is what I need. What I don't have is what I need. What I don't have is what I need. And friends, listen to me. You and I, we have one chance to get this right. James says that our life is like a vapor. It's here today and it's gone. Like when you step out on a cold winter morning in Boulder here and you breathe out and your breath is there for a moment and then it vanishes. You blink and your kids are in college. You blink again and your life is over. We get one chance to do this right. Better is one handful and the ability to focus on what really matters than two handfuls and distraction and toil and strife and stress and frustration. Hear me on this. Your life is too valuable. Your calling is too great. And your God is too good to waste this life on a bunch of stuff. Your life is too valuable. You say, Dre, how do you know my life is valuable? Because God proved the value of your life by sending Jesus to die for it, to pay for it. Jesus died the death that we deserve. He was buried and rose again like you and I can't, and he offers forgiveness and new life to anyone who would put their faith in him and trust in him to save us and set us free, to give us a new life, a new purpose, a new passion, a deep relationship with God, and a life worth living full of meaning and purpose. Your life is too valuable. Your calling is too great. You're not on this planet by accident. You're not in this season by accident. You're not in this city by accident. Your life is too valuable, your calling too great, and your God is too good to waste this life on a bunch of stuff that you know doesn't matter in the end. And so I'm inviting you with me to embrace this idea that sometimes less is actually more. Better is one handful and an intimate relationship with my kids that starts when they're young and goes into their adult years that I get to enjoy for the life that I have. Better is one handful and some real friends around me, real spiritual community, people who love me, who love Jesus, and are not going to leave me to my own devices, but are going to help me grow and love and serve me in the process. Better is one hand and a few really awesome experiences and memories made because I have margin than a bunch of stuff in the way. Better is one handful and a marriage that is thriving and intimate and full of a little bounce chicka wow wow, if you know what I'm saying, than two handfuls and stress and frustration and fighting and strife. Better is one handful and the ability to make a difference in the lives and the world around me. Better is one handful and a deep relationship with God that overflows into my purpose, into my passion, into my calling, into joy, into peace, than two handfuls of distraction and frustration and stress, and then when I look up at the end of my life, I have nothing to show for it. Your life is too valuable. Your calling is too great, and your God is too good to waste it. Let me pray for you. Will you bow your heads with me? As you bow your heads and close your eyes, I just want to invite you in this moment to reflect on what God is doing internally. It's not a super spiritual moment. It's just a moment for you to have some privacy in your own heart and mind so you don't have to be distracted by anybody else around you. But some of you are sitting here today and you're followers of Jesus, and this is all over your heart like it is mine. You're like, man, I want to believe this. I want to live it. I want to pursue it. I want to embrace it. And I feel God, man, telling me I need to cut back. I need to clear out. I need to start paying off. I need to position myself with one handful and the opportunity to invest in what really matters. And I've been distracted. And man, right now, sitting where you are, would you just pray in your own heart and mind to God and say, God, I'm going to take some action. This week, I'm going to give away 100 things. This week, I'm going to take a toll of everything that I need to pay off and see what next steps we might need to take. This week, I'm going to cut back and identify a few things that I can stop investing in and pay attention to what's around me. What is it for you, your next steps this week as a follower of Jesus? And others of you, maybe you're not a follower of Jesus in the room, and maybe for the first time you're hearing that God loves you and you're valuable and Jesus died for you to save you and set you free, and you can't be made right with God by being a good person. Jesus was the only one who is truly good. He was perfect like you and I can't be. He died for us. He rose again to not only pay for our sin, but to forgive us and make us right with God. And some of you have been in this life pursuing something to fill a void. There's this hole, there's this gap, there's this thing you've been pursuing, these things that you've been pursuing in careers and stuff and relationships, and you're trying to fill a void. And I want you to know that what you're looking for is not material, but spiritual. The reason you haven't been able to find it up to this point is because you've been looking in the wrong place. And I want you to know the answer to what you've been looking for is spiritual, and his name is Jesus. And sitting right where you are, you can pray in your own heart and mind and say, Jesus, I believe in you. I believe you died for me. I believe you rose again. I believe you can save me, and I want you to forgive me, and I want to follow you, and I want to live for you. And in your own heart and mind, you can pray right now and ask Jesus to save you. And in this moment, he'll make you new, forgive you, give you new life, bring you into relationship with God, and fill your life with new purpose, power, and the opportunity to live in relationship with God, both now and forever. So before you cut back or clear out or pay off, I want you to know that Jesus is the foundation for everything we're talking about today. I'm going to pray over you right now. God, I'm so grateful for your love for us. I'm grateful for the wisdom and the insight that you bring into our lives. And we ask for the help from the power of the Holy Spirit to give us the strength to cut back, to clear out, to begin to pay off. Give us the wisdom that we need to make decisions now that not only affect us immediately, but affect us long term in the relationships that we have in our future in the world around us. And I pray for anybody who has not put their faith in Jesus today, God, that right now, before leaving this space, they will be so overwhelmed by your love, so overwhelmed by the opportunity to have a relationship with you that you would pay it all and they could not earn it but simply receive it. And today they would do that by trusting you and asking you to save them. It's in Jesus' name.